A terrifying storm is brewing. A storm unlike any calamity that has ever afflicted this world. It is described in prophecy as a windstorm of Jehovah. But this oncoming tempest is no natural phenomenon, such as a supersized hurricane brought on by global warming. Neither is it a supernatural act of God, such as the 10 plagues with which God once afflicted ancient Egypt. The windstorm of Jehovah is to be brought about by sheer human folly, greed, and wickedness, driven by demonic madness. It will be expressed in the form of international wars, global financial collapse, food shortages, and deadly pandemics. The ensuing chaos will overturn the present political system of things and give rise to a short-lived, totalitarian New World Order, so-called. Jehovah God, being all-knowing, possessing the unfathomable ability of seeing from the beginning the finale, foresaw the disastrous end of human rulership long ago. The operative principle is as stated at Hosea 8:7, "For it is a wind that they keep sowing, and a storm wind is what they will reap." The 30th chapter of Jeremiah describes the storm this way, saying, "Look, a windstorm of Jehovah. Rage itself has gone forth, an onward sweeping tempest. Upon the head of the wicked ones it will whirl. The burning anger of Jehovah will not turn back until he will have executed and until he will have carried out the ideas of his heart. In the final part of the days, you people will give your consideration to it." The bleak period just ahead of us is variously designated in Scriptures as the time of the end, the final part of the days, and the conclusion of a system of things. Without question, the long-suppressed expression of Jehovah's rage will usher in the most distressing time in all human history. The coming cataclysm will most certainly shake civilization to its very foundation, even causing to be called into question the continued existence of mankind upon this earth, as Jesus forewarned when he said, "Unless those days were cut short, no flesh would be saved." In Bible times, God often accomplished his judgments by using human agencies. According to what we read in the book of the prophets, God's adverse judgments against Israel and Judah, as well as numerous other nations of ancient times, were expressed primarily by means of the conquering Assyrian and Babylonian empires. For example, the original windstorm of Jehovah, recorded by the prophet Jeremiah, found its expression in the storm-like invasion of Judah by the Babylonians. In order to demonstrate the fact that he was merely using human military forces, though, Jehovah invariably disposed of the very agencies he once used. Thus, even though the king of Babylon was acting as Jehovah's appointed executioner when he destroyed Jerusalem, eventually God also weighed Babylon on the scales of justice and disposed of that kingdom by means of the Medo-Persian army. To establish the authenticity of Bible prophecy, the sudden overthrow of Babylon was foretold by Isaiah over 200 years before it occurred. Even before Babylon and the Chaldeans gained ascendancy over Assyria to become the dominant world power. In the 44th and 45th chapters of Isaiah, Jehovah foretold in precise detail that he would dry up the mighty Euphrates River of Babylon, and that the 2 leaved doors of the city would swing open before a great king named Cyrus. The prophesied downfall of Babylon, at the very zenith of its power, was significant because at the time the city was considered to be invincible. Babylon's massive double-wall system was virtually impenetrable by ancient armies with crude battering rams and spears. But on the night of October the 2nd, in the year 539 BCE, the combined armies of the Medes and the Persians somehow engineered the diversion of the Euphrates River, perhaps opening gates upstream to divert the water into irrigation canals or flood detention ponds. Whatever the case, they were able to swiftly lower the water level sufficiently to allow the invaders to stealthily wade across the river. And because the city was caught up in a drunken celebration in honor of their god Marduk, Babylon's supposed protector, the gates of the city facing the river were left unlocked. Thus Babylon fell to Cyrus in one night, exactly as Jehovah had foretold in Isaiah. To emphasize that the overthrow of Babylon was sanctioned by heaven, God caused to appear the back of a human hand, writing on the wall in Belshazzar's palace, just moments before Cyrus captured the city. The prophet Daniel was called into the palace to decipher the enigmatic Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin for the terrified king. God had indeed numbered the days of his kingdom and weighed them in the balances. Belshazzar was killed that very night, and the Medes and the Persians took control of mighty Babylon. The fulfillment of the foretold fall of Babylon not only establishes the authenticity and reliability of God's prophetic word, but more importantly, it also provides a pattern for what is to come. Significantly, Cyrus, the conquering Persian monarch, was referred to by Jehovah as my anointed one, or Messiah in Hebrew. As such, Cyrus pictures the Messiah, Jesus Christ, in his role as a world-conquering king and the savior and liberator of God's oppressed people. In that respect, Babylon typifies the last king of Bible prophecy, called the eighth king in the book of Revelation, which is symbolized by a scarlet-colored wild beast ridden by a brazen prostitute. The kingdom of the eighth king is destined to rule the world for a symbolic 1 hour, or 3½ literal years, during which time the final human kingdom will conquer and kill Jehovah's chosen ones, only to be annihilated by God's Cyrus-like anointed king, Jesus Christ. Elsewhere in prophecy, namely Habakkuk, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel, the king of Babylon is portrayed as the despoiler and punisher of nations, as a mass-murdering tyrant, and as the last kingdom in a succession of kingdoms, which will ultimately be destroyed by God's kingdom. The prophecy of Habakkuk, which is a vision for the time yet appointed, depicts the Chaldean going on a genocidal rampage, ensnaring all humanity as if hapless fishes caught in a net, and destroying the very city of God. And ultimately the Chaldean is destroyed in warfare, not with the Medes and Persians, but by the armies of heaven, harmonizing with what Revelation describes as the War of Armageddon. It is noteworthy that Isaiah 14:18-20 said of the king of Babylon, "All other kings of the nations, yes, all of them, have lain down in glory, each one in his own house. But as for you, you have been thrown away without a burial place for you, like a detested sprout, clothed with killed men stabbed with the sword that are going down into the stones of a pit, like a carcass trodden down. You will not become united with them in the grave, because you brought your own land to ruin. You killed your own people. To time indefinite, the offspring of evildoers will not be named." The significance of this aspect of prophecy is that it says all other kings of the nations have lain down in glory, all others except the king of Babylon. How is that to be understood? Does not ancient Babylon occupy an honored place in history, just like all the other ancient kingdoms that have come and gone? A trip through the British Museum, for example, ought to confirm that. As the inheritor of the imperial mantle, it is as if London is the primary curator of the remains of the biblical kingdoms, with displays commemorating, among others, the Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Grecian, and Roman cultures of centuries past. So, how is it that Babylon has been thrown away without an honorable burial place in the pantheon of fallen empires? Again, the ultimate realization of the prophecy has to do with the appearance of the eighth king. He will not be succeeded by any other earthly empire, as was ancient Babylon. No, he will meet an inglorious end on the battlefield of Armageddon. And as Revelation depicts, the vanquished armies that will fight against Christ and his heavenly cavalry are destined to become fallen carcasses, left to rot on the ground like manure. Their disastrous and ignominious end will rise like smoke forever and ever. In that respect, then, the modern king of Babylon will not receive an honorable burial, as did his illustrious imperial forebearers, including the typical Babylonian Empire of antiquity.